had a season where you've had this many injuries to so many frontline guys? Is this comparable to anything you've dealt with in the past?
One other year, and you know what you do the very best you can to it's an easy mantra to say next man up, but sometimes the next man up is not the best guy for that position, and so it's really important that each player that we put out there on the field, Robert, that we put them in position to be successful and instill confidence, and that's what we're about in the midst of today in those meeting rooms and coming up with a plan. But is it unusual? Yes, this is unusual to have this many. But what I found through the years is typically there's ebbs and flows. You'll have a whole rash one year, and then the next year, I can remember one year I was at Duke. We went through a whole year and didn't lose a starter on either side of the football. So we're at where we're at, and we need to get these guys in position to come up with a game plan to go out and instill confidence for them to play. But you've got a guy like Will Tutine. He's probably going to be playing a lot of meaningful reps against Fresno State that we didn't know anything about. He just showed up in fall camp, and so those are unique situations for a coach.
Craig, you've done this for so long. I mean, it's always either.
I'm starting to make you feel like I got an AARP card. I appreciate the compliment. Dang, go on.
When you look at it, I mean, you double rep guys. I know it's but you don't. Your middle of the season, do you go back or do you lean a little further back on what you do conditioning wise during the week to try to keep these guys healthy? Do you stick with the plan that's got you here? I mean, how do you kind of adjust?
A lot of these injuries, really, when a guy breaks his hand, he broke his hand, or you do look at torn ACLs. We've had a somewhat of a rash on that. Coach DeVal and I have talked a little bit, not at length, saying, okay, what can we do? I do know that our guys need to be stronger, and we're in the process, and those are foundational things that, quite frankly, take several years to implement. And so we're looking at that, and then I think some of the injuries are just kind of freak things that occur.
Coach, you mentioned silver linings, and certainly Roofran at this point has caught a pass in 45 straight games, which is the most in the country. Just how nice is it, I guess, to have that consistency every game where you know what you're going to get from a guy like that?
Thanks for bringing that up. I think not only Dominic, but our receiving corps as a whole has really achieved well in almost every game when Kobe's been able to deliver the ball. And in the Colorado State game, we had a lot of big plays there, and there were probably a couple more out there that we didn't bring home. But Dominic has been a real joy to coach, along with a lot of other guys. And at times you forget the fact that he's got this record, and I think much of it could be attributed to his attitude. He's a very selfless player. He catches a pass, he's happy, and if he doesn't, I don't think he's over there doing the Randy Moss or anything like that. And so it makes these years enjoyable to have some guys like Dominic, and there's a whole group of those guys.
What made it possible with having 4 touchdown drives in a row, and some of those drives being 11, 13 plays like you like to have? Did anything change, or did anything click there near the end?
Certain things as the game unfolded, and I think our coaching staff's always been fairly good as far as making second half adjustments, and so that came into play. And then some of those drives also got extended because of penalties against Colorado State, and so we took advantage of those.
Craig, I see Sonny on the depth chart. I know he was in uniform last week but didn't play. Is he going to be able to go, or do you know his status as of now?
I would say he and Jesse, you might flip a coin. They're going to be game time decisions. We'll see how they progress during the course of the week, and I'll get in touch with him to let you know on that. Sonny, we're dealing with a nerve that's regenerating, and it's just on the timetable. I know this, if there's anybody that can be out there as soon as possible, it's going to be Sonny.
As far as Brian Hill goes, for someone to have that much be kind of thrown in the border war and that kind of environment, what did you see from him as far as maturity and being able to handle that situation and perform the way that he did?
It was all positive, but That was similar, if you remember, against Montana. He played in a real critical time of the game as we were coming down here, I believe in the north end zone, and excelled. And so we've been duly impressed with Brian. He's gone out and he's made progress as far as understanding our system. He's got good ability, but he's a real student of the game. And the other thing that I've noticed, that there has not been one situation that he's been placed in, whether it's on special teams or a pass protection or some of the runs that have been called, that he shied away from the competition. And I think that not only speaks volumes about his physical attributes, but it talks about his emotional maturity too. He's a really mature, very focused freshman, a true freshman, and so I think he's got a bright future.
Craig, you can see Josh listed behind Brian would be those top two guys. Is Omar Stover in that mix as
Yeah,
a third
Omar,
guy?
we just didn't have a
Right.
third, but Omar will be the third guy, and so, we'll integrate Omar in the game plan this week.
Coach, I think you mentioned after the game how, with the defense's injuries, this is also an opportunity where you have to start to assess depth and everything, and just how much can you approach this as an opportunity for some of these young guys that you haven't seen as much in the game situations to be able to kind of prove themselves and show some things?
It depends on what the situation is on some of these guys, and that's why I was leading back to, as we integrate particularly a younger player in the game, to give them an opportunity to be successful. And that doesn't mean that you can go ahead and script out everything that's going to come about, but it does. Would we like to have Mark Nazacha out there, who's on everybody's NFL board? Yeah, we don't, and that's going to give an opportunity for a guy like Jeff Lark to maybe play a little bit more. In the secondary, you've seen Will's been out there. And normally Will, if we wouldn't have double repped in fall, he wouldn't even be close to where he's at right now. Certainly Robert Priester's another guy. Brian is another guy. Many times those occurrences in game-like situations are invaluable, but there's also growing pains that go through that. And we're encountering some of those as well.
What are your impressions of Fresno early on film? I understand they're changing
They
quarterbacks
are.
this week to a redshirt freshman who hasn't played a ton. How does that change things, and just what are your initial impressions of them right now?
Well, he has played a little bit. He played against Southern Utah, so we've watched that. I know that he was a heavily recruited quarterback out of high school. He's one of the Elite 11. He was in the top 150 in the ESPNs. It was a blue chip recruit that they landed a couple years ago, and so he's obviously very capable. They had a bye week, and so how much their offense changes, that's probably going to unfold during the first quarter. But the information that we know, I'm sure they're not going to have urban renewal with all kinds of new schemes. He's obviously very talented, and they wouldn't have put him in a starting position if they didn't believe in him.
Defensively, Craig, I know they've given up some points, and I know they played some good guys, some good teams too.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing defensively from them, where teams have been able to certainly move the ball and score on them at least?
Well, I think first of all, let's look at some of the teams they played, because I think they've played some pretty outstanding football teams. And with that, I mean, they're a stunning defense that has all kinds of different looks, that poses all kinds of different problems, and at times that may have been some shortcomings for some points, but I would attribute more of those points, Robert, to the level of competition that they have played. Is that all?
Just one more quick thing. I wonder, there's been a couple blocked field goals and extra points. Is that just a breakdown as far as positionally, or how do you kind of address those sort of breakdowns?
This last week it was. We had a failure. The get-off time was fine. A couple things that you look at there, Mike. You look at your get-off time. You look at the trajectory of the kick, and you can see where even when a ball is kicked successfully, we're always mindful of that. And that was an error, and it was a disappointing error that occurred on a schematic assignment. And so that's part of coaching, and that comes back to us, comes back to me as a head football coach, so we need to clean that up.
Coach, will Brian Hill get most every carry again going into Fresno? He got almost every carry against Colorado State. Will he be the primary back getting most?
He'll be the primary back, but I would venture to say you'll see a couple of those other running backs get a little bit more. I mean, we were literally with, sometimes yelling and screaming different things out to the other guys that were out there. But I think with a week's practice, you're going to see those other guys integrated into our offense a little bit more. But Brian, you know what? He tore to that leather, and he tapped himself out once. But I thought it was a very admirable performance on his part, and those experiences are going to prove to be a great foundation of our program long term. The challenge is we're in the here and now, right now, and that's a ways away, but we'll get a benefit from that. Other questions? Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Coach.